Do you think that there's a danger of maybe not your position, but other positions getting taken over by something like AI? And
At the end of the day, technology has a failure point. I used to just blow my top. I would get super frustrated at the littlest things.
that comes you're from Philly, or
It could be.
On this episode of Another Italian Hothead.
My wife is nothing short of an angel.
She definitely is an angel. I had to put up with you for a little bit.
we almost had to throw you out a couple of times. So yeah. All right, welcome back to the Intrepidus Podcast, episode 7, with your hosts Dan and Anthony. Today we got a special guest, Rob Follietta, owner and operator of FTS Enterprises. I'm going to let him explain what exactly they do, but previous conversations led us to the GC of IT. So tell us a little bit more, Rob.
Hey, how you guys doing? Basically, we run a full-service IT company. So everything from wiring, networking, audio, video, lighting, everything based around technology. But yeah, like you said, GC of IT.
What makes you different? Like if I were looking for IT companies, why would I want to choose FTS versus the other guy?
For the most part, we specialize in multiple areas of technology. So instead of having, 4 different vendors, security vendor, an IT vendor, networking vendor, everything falls under one company with us.
Did you realize, it seemed like you realized early on that there was a need, because before this pod, we had a little discussion about how you got into this, and you said that there was this gap where customers would be frustrated contacting multiple different vendors and facilitating their IT work. When exactly did you realize that this was a need, and how did you capitalize on it?
I realized that around, right before I started my business. I was working for another IT company, and we had to actually reach out to multiple vendors to get a problem solved. As the IT company, everything works in conjunction to each other. So when one thing goes wrong, you have to call another vendor. And, it was frustrating for us. It was frustrating for the customers. So that's when we decided to start FTS. We basically, I looked at everything that was frustrating when I worked for a company, and I took insight from the customers of what frustrated them, and basically did everything I had to do to make sure that, we solved that problem.
So number one, thanks for the swag. We got some cool FTS shirts here, man. Question for you is, you worked for a company and then you decided to start your own company. What emotions did you go through and how did you do it? Because I think the biggest obstacle for most people is everyone wants to own their own company. Everyone dreams of owning their own company, but they're very content with working for somebody else. So how did you go from being that employee to being the business owner?
So I was actually young. I was still living at my parents' house. So my bills were kind of very minimal. And I figured that was the time to take that dive because, I couldn't, I didn't want to take that dive and not have the money to, sustain my life. So back then it was very minimal. So I took the push, and I actually, in the beginning, we subcontracted for a couple companies. So we still had that income coming in, and I actually subcontracted for the company that I was working for. So it was I had a little bit of a security cushion there, which was, big.
So I think if you create that whole security cushion mindset, that's what a lot of people won't do. Forget about that security cushion. Just think about the process of you going from the employee to the business owner. And even though you had that initial scarcity, what was that different feeling knowing that you're your own boss? And once you got through that cycle of like, oh, wow, I'm making money. Because I think that next guy or next girl who wants to do what you're doing has to get past that security situation. And I think security and having that job security is the biggest fear. So once you got past that, you go, oh man, I got contracts, we're making money. How did you feel knowing that you made the right decision?
Oh, that felt great. But then in the back of my head, I was always thinking like, what about when this runs out, or what if this contract, fails, or what if this customer goes out of business? Like, you constantly have that in the back of your head. But I just learned to push through that and not think about that.
Yeah, exactly. How do you combat that fear, right? Because, fear of losing everything seems to be one of your top fears, if I'm reading this correctly. Aside from that, well, one, how exactly do you combat that on a regular basis?
For me, it was to keep a positive mindset. I can think of, the what ifs all day, and, that'll eat you alive. You'll sit up at night wondering about it. But for us, it was just doing a good job to people, and they talk. If you solve people's problems and, you do what's needed to be done, then most of the time they'll refer you to somebody else. And, you constantly have to grow. It's like we were talking about earlier. It's, you can't, nobody's content in business. Like, okay, I'm going to stop here. I think, I have enough customers now. It doesn't work that way.
Right. It seems like you've had a lot of success just doing the right thing. If I'm not mistaken, you have not done advertising before. It's all word of mouth.
Yeah, very, very minimal advertising, like, things on Instagram, Facebook, things like that, but no real advertising. We're going to try to take that dive soon.
It's beautiful.
You actually did all the IT, all the networking, everything for our new podcast studio here. And you were actually a referral. A good friend of mine had told me about you, and his name is Dan. Dan. And he said, hey, I got this guy. I think you guys will get along great. He'll be able to help you guys out. And he made that connection. So just based on how you work, based on referral, that's huge. So a question for you outside of that is you have 4 kids.
Yes.
Right. And a wife. And I think it's important for a lot of people, not only with the security factor, but the world of having that life of marriage and children. I think a lot of people have a scarcity mindset where it's like, I need to support my kids. How and what type of role does your wife play into your business? And what do you see your wife doing for your kids? And what drives you to be where you are today?
Oh, my wife is nothing short of an angel. For putting up with me, I gotta shout her out.
Oh, she definitely is an angel. I have to put up with you for a little bit.
We almost had to throw you out a couple of times. So yeah.
My wife's great, and she's a huge support system. And when I started my company, I just started dating her like a year after I started my company, or 2 years after. And so in the beginning, it was we were slow. Like I worked an 8-hour day, and then that turned into 12-hour, 16-hour days, not being home for a few weeks, traveling to Long Island and different places we were working. So she puts up with a lot on top of, holding the fort down at home.
Well, tell us a little bit about your kids.
I have 4 kids. I have a 13-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 3-year-old. So I have 2 boys and 2 girls. And they're part of the reason I do. They are the reason I do everything I do. Do
you ever engage your kids? Like, do you ever bring your kids to work or show your kids what you do or have them participate in anything you do?
Yeah, my oldest, I did a lot. And my son, a 9-year-old, I have him involved a lot. But the 2 younger ones, you said something today that kind of resonated with me. It's never too early to get them involved. And, I think I gotta do that.
Awesome. So, I remember, my kids when they were young and getting involved in stuff, and they were so excited. Like, it's almost like big boy toys, right? They're going to be working with dad. It's like the experience of a lifetime. Oh my God, I want to work with my dad, and they get to talk about it in school with all their friends. What kind of obstacles do you face in your current business today? Like, what kind of things are roadblocks, or what kind of things maybe take a little bit of thought? Like, oh man, if I don't do this right, I might be here, not where I'm trying to go. So what kind of roadblocks do you have, or what kind of fear do you have for getting to that next step of where you're trying to be?
A lot of the things are the same in every business, capital funding, keeping cash flow. Most of it is, in our company at least, is the technology. Everything's changing. Like, things change daily almost. So a big part of what we have to do is to constantly, keep up with the technology. Like, for instance, if I were to help you with something, you don't want a technology that's 5 years old, because then people would come up to me and say, hey, this other thing's way better. So, we have to kind of keep up with the times. But at the same time, we have to, you don't always want to be on the cutting edge either. You don't want things that are so new that they're not reliable. So that's a big thing for us. The other main thing is employees and processes and procedures and just figuring out the right things and how to do them.
Right. So how do you keep up with all the technology? I'm extremely curious because, they say that technology, the advancement doubles every few years. That's a lot to keep up with being one person. How exactly do you manage that? And at what point did you decide to go from a sole proprietorship to an enterprise like you are today?
So the way we keep up with it is we have three of us that we basically all do something different in the business. Like I specialize more in like the networking and, the sound side, AV, and, Frank specializes more in like websites and, the media kind of things. And, so he'll keep up with the technology on that stuff. I'll keep up with the technology on, the networking, the AV, things like that, because it's too much for one person. But what I try to do, and, I'm not able to do it all the time, but like an hour a day, I try to dedicate just to, reading up on the newest things. And, then we have to buy some of the stuff. Like I have so much demo stuff at our office of things we bought because I can't just sell you something that I didn't try and make sure it works. That's like me bringing it out and saying, oh, well, hopefully it works right. So we have to demo a lot of the stuff. And, so there's certain brands that we swear by, and, there's certain products that, we just use religiously every place we do, if it fits.
Hey guys, quick interruption to the show. Please don't forget to follow us and like us.
You can find us on Spotify and YouTube. Hit that like button. We appreciate the algorithm. Thanks, guys.
Love you guys.
So for the time I know you, one thing I do know about you is you don't sleep much. But when you do try to sleep.
With 4 kids, how do you?
It's like, hey, this guy's always working. But when you do actually try to sleep, relax, what goes through your mind? What keeps you up?
It's really like my wife's a stay-at-home mom. She takes care of the kids. So it's the same as a lot of business owners. It's the weight on your shoulders, obviously. It's things go wrong or, but like I said earlier, you can't think about all that. Like I used to stay up all night thinking. Now it's kind of, I get to the point where I just go home and I crash because I'm tired. But, I used to stay up and, when you go home and you try to go to sleep, every thought crosses your mind, obviously. Like, things that you haven't thought about in 5 years, when you hit the pillow, all of a sudden you're thinking about it. So I try to just turn it off, and I try to, last couple of years I've been trying to focus on all the positives and not really the negatives, but you still do, have to address it.
Right. You said earlier, you said we in the beginning, and you referenced we a bunch of times. Do you have a partner?
No, I try to, Frank's a partner of mine, but I try to always address the company as we, because
I love that.
It's not me. Like, I can only do so much, but the guys that work for me are able, like if we have a job, pull 100 cables, me, myself would take a month to do that. So we all work as a team. We all have like certain areas we fall into that make it complete. So without the guys that work for me, without the employees, I wouldn't have a company.
Right.
So technology is like advancing so fast. You talked about it. Do you have a fear that you're maybe not going to be needed one day? Like everything's going to be click and play, and FTS is not going to be a company that's going to be needed. I know that certain people can't even plug things in. I mean, that's the reality. Certain guys don't even know how to use a knife. But at the end of the day, do you have a fear that like you're going to be replaceable by such easy plug and play things that people may not need your services?
There may be a time. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, because it's like we one of the big parts of our company is wiring and infrastructure. So fiber optic cabling, data drops for computers. Like somebody moves into an office, we pull all that cable. Well, when Wi-Fi came out, that was a big fear we had. Wi-Fi's been out for years, but as it progresses, it's like, you think that that's going to take over the hard wiring, but there's nothing as reliable as hard wiring. So there's always going to be a need for anything technological to connect to the internet, to the network. There's always going to be a need for us. It's actually increasing as time goes on. So, it used to be if you were an IT company, you used to handle websites, computers, everything because it wasn't a big area. Now there's websites, there's computer repair, there's networking, there's security cameras. It's so broad now. There's like as more technology comes out, it all falls under the same area. And that's why I try to say we're a technology company, not an IT company.
Right. So speaking of technology, can we get your honest opinion on ChatGPT?
ChatGPT is interesting. It's definitely it's some next level stuff.
Do you think that there's a danger of maybe not your position, but other positions getting taken over by something like AI and ChatGPT or Alexa or Siri or whatever other slew of names there are out there for learning technology?
I think as time goes on, technology is going to take over humans. I think like you see it on the turnpike. You know, when we were younger, we all used to, pay cash at the turnpike. Now everything's tollless. It's gonna, and when you go to the grocery store, you're checking out your own items. So we've definitely all lived through a crazy change, like from when we were younger until now. A lot of things have changed, and technology's been the forefront of that. So I think it's going to replace a lot of jobs, but I still think like if you're at Home Depot, Lowe's, anywhere like that with self-checkout, there's still a human that has to manage it. So at the end of the day, technology has a failure point.
I think the reason I asked that question is, do you think that for the audience, anyone who's looking to get into a technology-based industry, whatever it may be, do you think that's a fear that should restrict them and hold them back? And that's really why I asked you that question.
No, not at all, because there's still, with everything like the registers, the self-checkouts, somebody has to install them. Somebody has to maintain them.
Correct.
So it's still a job, but, instead of having 4 employees work registers, now you got one that manages 4. Right. So there's still going to be a need. And I think as technology grows, there's going to be more of a need. So I think if anything, the technology industry is going to just keep growing and growing over the next 10, 20 years.
I think technology has grown so much because the society's became so lazy.
That's a fact.
Nobody wants to work. Even a chick at self-checkout, you know what I mean? Like she's like looking at her phone, not paying attention. You got guys walking out with full carts of stuff. They don't even know what's going on. It's crazy out there. So what are your moves? Like you've been in business for how many years now?
We started in 2009, so about 15 years.
So let's not go 15 years, but let's say 5 years from now, 10 years from now, where do you see yourself and where do you want to be at FTS?
I want to grow a lot in the next 5 years, like any business owner, obviously. But I want to get more structured where we have different departments and I can kind of, like right now I wear a lot of hats. So, I got to start passing things on to other people to do. And I think as a company grows, that's the type of things you can do because like we all say it, work on the business instead of in the business. And I think that's a big thing is being able to, actually take a step back and evaluate everything and let other people make choices for you. So I want to grow the company a lot in the next couple of years.
So you said growth, and there's a lot of different aspects to growth, right? There's personnel growth, there's financial growth in your top line revenue, there's net margin growth. Like in your industry and what you do now, like what do you put at the forefront of growth in order to attain the rest?
What was that again?
So how do you want to grow, right? So do you want to grow, hire 100 people, 50 people, 20 people? 5 years from now, what does your company look like?
I think it sounds great to say 100 people, but I'm trying to take it one step at a time. Like I want to grow, let's get another 10 people on, and then look, 100 people is great. I would love to do that, but I want to basically I want to grow in a couple ways. Like I try to say like, our company, we're a family. We're all close. We'll do anything for each other. So I want to get to the point where we're able to find more people to meet like our values and we're able to give the same customer experience. I see it a lot in multiple industries. The companies grow too quick and then they lose the reason they started in the beginning. So it's, we don't want to grow to this huge corporation that, is not taking care of the customer at the end of the day.
Right.
Oh, definitely. Since you're a guest on our podcast, Anthony, give you some time. He's huge with systems and processes. He can give you some tips. That's something that he's big on, and he likes coaching people on, and really helping people. And the things I've seen him do, it blows my mind. I'm like, dude, that's so confusing. For me, I'm on the whole opposite side of the spectrum. Like, I'm a big mindset guy. I'm a big, personal development guy. And, I know I've talked to you a few times about, different events and different things going on. In your growth throughout your business and throughout your life, how has personal development and making yourself better allowed you to become better?
That's huge. I used to like be very like a hothead. I used to just like blow my top with everything. Like I would get super frustrated at the littlest things. And
Is that because you're from Philly or?
it could be, but it was just, it might have been, part of how I grew up, things like that. But it was, I used to just get super frustrated for no reason. And a lot of the guys that still work for me now, they put up with me in that time. And, it's really the positive mindset over the last couple of years. I try to just think positive, stay positive, and, not let the little things get to me as much. But, that's how I used to be. So I grew a lot in the last couple of years. It's really about just keeping, like you said, personal growth and keeping yourself together, because there's days that are great and there's days that suck. Like, they're terrible, but you have to still, tomorrow's another day.
On this episode of Another Italian Hothead. That's good. I mean, I think it's important. Do you read? Do you listen to podcasts? Like, what do you do to take in that personal growth? What is it that you bring into your world to change your mind, to shift your mind, to elevate you?
I read. Reading has actually changed How to Win Friends and Influence People. Actually,
Great book.
Kind of changed that. I owe a lot of the changes to that book the last couple of years. I used to just, we discussed it. I used to just blow my head all the time. And my buddy sat me down. He's like, look, dude, you need to read this book. I think it'll really help you. And I think it really did. I think one of the lessons in that book where, I think it was the guys wearing the hard hats. And it's like, are you going to yell at your employees for not wearing their hard hat? Or are you going to ask them why they aren't wearing it? Is it because it's uncomfortable? Do they need a different size? And that made me think, like, instead of just snapping on people, try to figure out the reason why they're not succeeding in what they're doing. So, it's real easy to get frustrated at somebody, but you're not going to grow unless you're able to, talk to somebody and figure out what the problem is. Because sometimes your guys can't get things done because of something that you did. Maybe you ordered the wrong parts, or you overquoted a job or underquoted a job, and now you're taking your frustration out on them.
So you think ownership is really important?
Oh, definitely. That's one of the biggest things.
What happens in the absence of ownership?
I would imagine you would fail.
Right.
So I think it's important. What you were just talking about is, even in any company I've ever had, and over the course of the last 10 years, I've changed the way I've thought about it. But it's taking personal responsibility for everything. No matter what goes wrong in your company, it's your fault, number one. Number two, there's not a problem. There's always a solution. And I always try to instill that in anyone who's ever worked for me, and it works for me now, is like, there's no problem. Let's figure out a solution. We'll come through it, whatever it is. And if it's my fault, I own it. But even if it's not my fault, I own it. Let's figure out how we're going to solve it. And I think it makes people feel better. Like, I'll literally be like, hey, listen, whatever's going on, it's my fault. I'll take 100% responsibility. But how are we going to do this? And ask them for insight. So if there's something that you did, you underbid a job, or you ran wire the wrong way, you ordered the wrong material, like, all right, well, what can we do to still make this day work? And maybe, tackle this somewhere another day or whatnot. I mean, it's important to get them involved, but at the same time, own it, like Anthony talked about, and then deliver the solution.
Exactly. Me and you were actually talking about that recently.
Yeah, I think, I live by these 3 Ps, right? And I think someone else has said it before, so I'm not claiming this one, but product, price, and process, right? And the most important, and that's why it's sandwiched between the two, are the people, because the people create the process and they sell the product most times too, right? So I think you're 100% right on. That's probably why you're been in business for so long, is you put your people first and you also put your customers first. So I think that's very admirable.
Yeah, the people fall in as both. So the people are your employees and the people are the customers.
Correct.
So your customers are the ones bringing the work to you, and your guys are the ones getting the work done. So people are very important.
Can't get it done without people. So
Now you just need more of them.
what do you find most frustrating? So look, we're going to take it on another level. What do you find most frustrating about dealing with people? Setting an expectation, because I feel like people expect things, but they're not willing to pay for things, number one, or people expect things that they visualize, but it's not reality. How do you deal with stuff like that?
I try to just keep myself together for the most part. Or I try to hire the right people from the beginning, and we have, like, we know by working with someone for a week if they're going to be a good fit or not. Because at the end of the day, they're like, people aren't going to change for your company. They're not going to become different people. There's ways people were raised. There's ways people. There's habits that they form over time. So you have to really, get the right people that align with your vision and align with the way you run your company.
I love this topic. So let me ask you, how exactly do you filter those people out? How do you get people attuned to your culture, and how do you select them?
It's hard, especially since
definitely
COVID.
Is hard.
Since COVID, you can't really, finding employees are tough to begin with, but you can really just have a conversation with somebody and understand where they're at. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of people sneak through the cracks. So just working with them and just knowing their habits. Like a big one was what you said, taking accountability. Like, somebody will make a mistake. We all make mistakes. It's okay. But not being able to say, hey man, I'm sorry, that was my mistake. Like, if you can't own up to something, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
I will say that the reason I ask is I'm going through something similar right now. Is we hired 3 new departments, so a total of 6 new people in the last 2 weeks. And one of those departments that we're growing is sales. Interviewing a salesman and trying to pick apart their culture and see if they're a cultural fit is inherently difficult, because this is what they do all day long, is sell, right? So I think there is an opportunity for an additional process to be put in place. And I was curious about, it seems like you have your employees for quite some time.
Yeah, most of our guys that we have now are, we had for over 5 years now.
Yeah, it's beautiful attrition. It's low. How do you maintain that, right? How do you maintain that relationship to keep an employee for 5 years? I'm sure there's people listening right now that are interested in keeping employees on the books. We try
to help them with, learning, and, like, we'll pay for any of their certifications, or, and I try to let them do what they like. Like, one of my guys, he loves terminating fiber. So, which terminating fiber is, you need to be able to see it, number one. It's very, very thin. But he likes doing that. So any job that comes in, it's fiber related, we send him. Obviously that's not every day, but, if somebody wants to switch from what they're doing day to day and do something else, we're open to that, as long as it's not going to affect the business. So, and a lot of our guys will, one of the bigger things were, side work. And, since they do what they do with us, installing cameras, installing wiring, there's side job opportunities. So, what we try to do is, if we mostly work commercial. So if there's something that comes in that's like somebody's home or something, I'll give that to my guys to work on a weekend, because it's not something that we really do. So, we'll incentivize them in a lot of ways, and we'll do a lot of things to keep them happy, because that's really what it's about. If you're not keeping the employee happy, somebody else is going to.
Correct.
So what would you do for a younger Rob, or a younger person, or even an older person, but somebody who wants to go in business, be in your line of business? What kind of advice? Let's say I wanted to be just like you. What kind of advice can you give me so that I can be in that business and in that space?
So, like, what I would have did different, or?
Well, I for me, like, if people want to get involved in certain businesses or industries that I'm in, I'll tell them what not to do so that they don't have to go through those failure steps, and I'll tell them what to do. But I think a lot of people just are scared to take the jump. So what would you tell or encourage someone? Let's say there was a guy sitting here right now and he goes, Rob, man, this sounds so awesome. I love it. I love what you're doing. And it's something I really want to do. It's a dream of mine, but I just can't get myself to do it. What would you tell that person to tell them to go from where they are to where they want to be? How could you help them take that leap?
How do you start?
Yeah, I would say just take the leap because I'm a big regret person. Like, I look at it, and that could be up to, I look at life like you're going down a lane and you can go left or you can go right. If you go left, you crash and burn. If you go right, everything goes well in your life. So, it's like one wrong turn in your life, I feel like can really affect your life. But regret is like one of my worst fears. It's I don't want to regret not doing something. So anybody who wants to start in a business or start in a business like we have, just do it because you can always go get a job somewhere again. Like, you can always go and work for somebody. There's plenty of jobs hiring. But, if when you have that idea or you want to go into that business, I would do it. And the things that I would do, like from the beginning, anybody starting a business, is have your taxes figured out, have your processes figured out. Like these are things that I didn't do in the beginning, and I just kind of winged it. And I'm like, you pay the price later at some point. So like later on, you have to, if you didn't pay your taxes for 2 years, you gotta pay them. If you don't have processes, you eventually have to create them. It's like, and it's easier to do it in the beginning. It's like, but you're not thinking about it in the beginning because in the beginning you don't have 5 employees, so you're not gonna, make all these rules and things. It's just you. So I would say in the beginning, do what you can while you have the time, and just take the leap. You never know what could happen.
Take the leap, financially plan, and Uncle Sam is one hell of a bully. Got it. I think we put it all together here. All right. Well, really appreciate you being part of the show. Can you tell us where the guests and the audience can find you?
Oh, yeah. We have, obviously, a Facebook page, FTS Enterprises. We have an Instagram. We're starting to get involved in TikTok a little bit, so we'll be on there. And then we have a website, www.ftsenterprises.com.
Awesome.
Plural.
Awesome. Well, Rob, we really appreciate you being a guest, and we appreciate you giving us some swag. And to all our audience out there, make sure you're following us on Spotify and on YouTube. It helps the algorithm, and keep promoting us. We appreciate all of you.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me on as well. Beautiful
Awesome.
studio.
Thank you.